Good afternoon. My name is Yolanda Robinson Durden, and I am from the class of 1986. I am the Alumnae Engagement Coordinator, and I am so happy to have several of our alum today on our Draw Your Bow professional development series. So, first, let me introduce the participants. First, we have Gretchen Speaker Welch from the class of 2003, and she is in the Toledo area. We have Jill Mazinski Blakeman, who is from the class of 2000. She's also in the Toledo area. We have finally our good friend Kathy Korhummel Dice, who is in the Cleveland area. Thank you, ladies, for being a part of this series, and I look forward to the information that you'll share. And now I'll turn it over to our facilitator, Erin Mowry Neese.
Awesome. Thank you, Yolanda. It's fun to be here both with alum that I haven't met before. And also, Jill was just a couple lockers down from me when we were
Yep.
in school at St. Ursula together. So I think there was only like one or two in between, actually.
Yeah.
So as we get started today, we have a lot of focus in terms of finance and tax and just getting tips and guidance and information from alum like yourselves. That I have several questions that we'll talk through and keep things really conversational. But before we get started, I would love to have each of you introduce yourselves a little bit more, share a little bit about how you got into the role that you're in today, having, since leaving St. Ursula. And so I'm actually going to go in reverse chronological order. So Gretchen, I'm going to start with you and then we'll go to Jill and Kathy.
Okay. Well, after high school, I went to college at Bowling Green and I studied accounting. And after I graduated, I started out working for a small CPA firm doing audits of financial statements and preparing personal financial statements. I'm currently a CPA and mostly working with small businesses doing tax returns and individuals as well.
Thank you. Jill.
Okay. So since I graduated, I actually changed my major several times at UT. And then finally I landed in accounting and I graduated in 07 and I've been with William Bond since 2000. So I'm currently a tax manager with the firm. I basically specialize in high wealth individuals and family businesses, small businesses, larger businesses. We do tax planning, tax returns, consulting, business advisory, everything.
Awesome. Thank you. And Kathy.
So when I went to college after St. Ursula, I majored in accounting for about 30 seconds and ended up majoring in finance because accounting was really very challenging for me at the time. And I went from there and I worked in banking for about 20 years. I did start in the audit department, so I have a little bit of a background. And then, over the years, I've worked at the Cleveland Clinic and the Innovation Center. I've helped commercialize technologies. And then recently, 10 years ago, someone said, I need to do this. I need to start a bookkeeping business that does grant accounting for NIH and those kinds of grants. So what I do is we're QuickBooks experts and we do bookkeeping so that when the information gets to accountants like Jill and Gretchen, it's in good shape and they don't have to waste their time on it.
Yes, and I appreciate all of what all three of you do as a small business owner myself. So, and a great bookkeeper and a great CPA are worth their weight many times over in gold. So,
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'd love to start with, just right now, I think taxes, everybody's getting W-2s. They're getting the 1095s with their medical plan stuff. So everybody's kind of in the gathering information phase right now with tax season. So I'd love to, and I'll start Gretchen with you on this question, but Gretchen, Jill, Kathy, what advice do you have for people who are in the gathering phase right now with all that information? What are some of the things that they should be making sure to do as they're getting ready, especially given how strange last year was, to make the process go as smoothly as it can this year?
That's a great question. I think if you're working with a CPA or an accounting firm, I think the most important thing to do is to pay attention to any documents they sent you to outline what is needed to start your tax return. Gathering all the documents and reading through. Most of the time we provide checklists of, did this situation occur in your life? Did you move? Did you have a child? Anything that would change that we would not particularly know, read through that checklist and gather all your documents and make sure that you're providing us with all the information to make sure that we get your stuff and we can run with it and get it completed as quickly as possible and back to you without having to go back and forth with lots of questions.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Jill, what would you add there?
I mean, I completely agree. Basically, staying as organized throughout the year, any information that you need for like any itemized deductions, anything, that way keeping a file. So then when we do send out, like Gretchen said, like a tax organizer of sorts of what you would need for filing, it's a lot easier for you as the individual gathering the information. And then that way you're giving a complete picture to your accountant. So it is like a lot of the delays in returns processing is the back and forth and trying to gather information.
Right, right. Yes, absolutely. And Kathy, from your perspective too, as you're working with businesses as well, what can they be doing right now to be best prepared for getting things going? Because their timelines are different than individuals.
Well, sometimes I think the businesses can be easier than the individuals because they have systems in place that are in software and things that can help them. I guess I would say right now, and I can't say that I always do this, but you've got to be really nice to your accountant and be responsive to them. Since I'm not an accountant, I would say they've got a lot on their plate. And so if they ask for information, get back to them as soon as you can, because you don't want to be part of their backlog nearing April 1st.
Right.
So that would be what I do. The other thing I'd consider, just to tag along to what Jill was saying, I'd think about this process that you're going through right now and say, did it work for me last year? And if it didn't, if you feel overwhelmed, then I would say maybe pick up the phone to your accountant and see if you can get a different strategy going, because now you're a month into the next year. So it's a great time to implement maybe something different that would help you out.
Awesome. Well, and I'd like to build on that even. And so I'm going to start, Kathy, and I'll go back the other way on that, where, if something isn't working, or as you see kind of maybe year over year, people are making some of the same type of mistakes or errors. What are some of those mistakes or errors that you tend to see most frequently when you're working with a client? So Kathy, can you start on that one?
Oh, sure. Okay. So right now we're really hit by people that didn't do anything in 2020. And And yeah, a lot. Well, actually, we see people that didn't do anything in 2019 right now. So we've got people so that's just the nature of my business. So don't be embarrassed. Anyone that's listening to this, don't be embarrassed if you're a little behind and you haven't done anything. I think it's great to have a routine. Any of this can be fixed. It's no one's going to lose their life. Gretchen and Jill have ways to make this work. Their heart will be broken because they don't want to see you have to go and pay any penalties. But it all can be fixed, and it's better to do it now than to wait any longer. But it's so I'm not sure I answered your question. What can you be doing now? I just reach out and try to get help now and in the future. So what mistakes do I see making? It tends to snowball. So one of my recommendations is and this is more for small businesses, is to set aside a time every week to do your bookkeeping, so that you don't, it doesn't, if for some reason you miss a week, it's 2 weeks is not too hard to catch it up. So, do it during a TV show or whatever you might want to do. The other thing that I would recommend is don't commingle your personal and your business funds, since you're looking there. So starting today, if for some reason you do have one account for both, then I would say, start being religious about having 2 credit cards and 2 bank accounts for those transactions. It's going to make your life easier.
Well, what's coming to mind for me is almost that phrase around like the best time to do this was yesterday. The next best time is today, right now, to make those changes. So Jill, what would you add there? So as you're looking more on like the individual side of things, what are some of those common mistakes or common errors that we can start getting ahead of today?
Well, I mean, most of my clients are business owners. So for business owners, I would say if you are a new business, old business, and realizing what you were doing wasn't working, or if you were just trying to do it all on your own, the best people to have in your corner are a good bookkeeper, a good CPA, and a good attorney. And especially right now with all the stimulus and COVID plans, and there's so many tax credits and forgiveness of loans and all this stuff that as a small business owner, there's no way that you will be able to keep up with everything on your own. You have to have someone in your corner looking out for your best interests. Someone that is, sending you the latest news articles, emails, all the updates on stuff that you as a business owner or an individual, things that would impact you. You need someone looking out for that, because there's no way that you can run your business and also keep up with the latest everything that is going on. Because in our business, it's constantly changing, especially with the PPP loans. All that stuff with forgiveness, it changed every other week. The government couldn't keep up with how they were going to do everything. So as it was our job to keep our clients informed and to make sure that they were taking care of everything. So I think my recommendation is, if you have more than just a W-2 and maybe simple bank interest, you need to make sure that you have a good accountant in your corner, so they can help you kind of navigate some of the craziness of the constant changing atmosphere of taxes and accounting and everything.
Yes, I agree. And I'm going to come back to a couple pieces that you said there in a moment. But Gretchen, what else would you add there?
Yeah, I would like to piggyback off of, if you are working with a CPA firm or an accountant, usually firms will send out email blasts that kind of keep you aware of current events. And I read my own for my company, because, it's something, there's so much information that the more it's like thrown in your face, the more you can retain it and think about, how is this going to affect me or the decisions I make. So, and if you're not working with the CPA and you're trying to do it on your own, there's things on LinkedIn that you can follow, like other businesses, and they will put out their information. So if you like a business page on LinkedIn, a lot of times they'll push out information about new updates. And there's so much going on every year. It always seems like, oh, this is going to be a chill year. It never is that way. There's always something different, always something changing. Whatever we say today is not going to apply in 2 years. And so being connected with a professional or following a professional's business page to kind of keep you engaged. Look at your paycheck every week and you realize those taxes that are coming out of your check. It all comes due at tax time. So look at it and be proactive. If last year you owed money, look at your paycheck, get on the IRS website and use their withholding calculator and see where you need to be. If you do want to have a big refund, it can tell you how much you need to change in your paycheck if you're, receiving a W-2 employee. If you don't want a big refund because you don't want to give the IRS more of your money, change your withholdings to make it break even. I think that's a very useful tool, especially with the tax changes that happened a few years ago. A lot of people no longer itemize, and the standard deduction is a lot bigger. So that it's pretty much a simple return for a lot of people that are working for an employer and have W-2. So get on the IRS website and there's a withholding calculator that's very useful, and pull up your last pay stub and get started today to know where you want to be next year at tax time.
That is awesome. Well,
Sure.
as somebody who has moved a number of different times, so sometimes there's been years that get really complicated where it's okay, I've moved 2 different times in the calendar year, and now you've got taxes and state taxes from different places. Finding, for personally, before my business was started, finding a good CPA was kind of one of our first critical moves for my husband and me. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more. And Jill, I'm going to start with you. So I'll go Jill, Kathy, Gretchen, around, what are some of the questions that you would love for a client to ask as they are kind of talking with people that they want to work with? Because it's a choice for them to be working with your firm or with somebody in your firm. So what are some of the questions that somebody should be asking, or that an alum can be asking in those meetings when they're trying to determine if it's a good fit?
I think probably the best thing to ask someone that you're looking for is what their specialty is. Because if you're talking to a CPA that only specializes in construction businesses and you're just an individual, that's probably not going to be the best fit. If you're also talking to maybe a firm that is specializing strictly in business in general and maybe just business owners, and you're just a very simple return, probably the fees won't match up there. So always ask about the fee structure and how they're going to pay you, or they're going to pay the accountant. Just because you don't want to be, as a taxpayer, having someone file your return and you being surprised at the end of what that invoice is going to look like. Yeah. So that's because CPA and tax preparers, they vary greatly in what they're going to charge you. It all depends on what their specialty is, what they bring to the table, how big their firm is. There's thousands of different reasons on why they invoice the way they do. So that's always a really good question, because you don't want to be surprised at the end, because it's awkward for us and it's awkward for you, because you don't want to get in that position where you racked up too much of a bill. And also, I would say, ask your accountant or your potential accountant things that you can do to make the whole process more seamless, so you can get your return faster. That's probably what I would.
Well, and I'd imagine too, part of what's not being said there too is that the better prepared you are up front, kind of the less surprised you are on the back end as well.
Yeah. Especially since there are firms that bill hourly versus just quoted fees. So there can be racked up bills.
Exactly. Kathy, what would you add? What are some of those questions that somebody should be asking, or that you would even love to hear when somebody is talking with you and saying, well, should I be working with your firm?
Well, so when I get a lot of people asking me, can you refer an accountant to me?
Mm-hmm.
And so it all depends upon, and I have a lot of accountants. We work with a ton of accountants, and I refer them to one that I think is a couple. I usually give them two names. That's going to be the best fit. So that's going to be a price point and how they're going to grow, what they're looking at. If I were looking for an accountant, we've been using the same accountants. We have two, because we have two businesses in our family and our personal. And I guess I'm just on overkill, because it's nice. Sometimes they find accountants make a mistake, and it's okay. That's why you look at what you have to do. But anyway, I digress. But going back, I would want, when I'm calling someone that's been recommended, I would want someone that's very polite over the phone and is not judgmental, not short, someone who gets back to me. Accountants, I hear all kinds of stories. People are leaving their accountant, and it's because they don't hear their accountant goes missing every now and then. And so there are a lot of great accountants out there that are friendly and helpful, and so I would look for that. Someone that's not easily annoyed. And I would want someone that says that they do tax planning. So I would ask, especially if tax planning is important to you, if you think that you can take some advantages, if you think about things like in November. So an accountant you can tell if your accountant is doing tax planning because they contact you in November. Mm-hmm. And they want information, and they're going to make recommendations to you to minimize your taxes.
Right.
So that's how you know.
You can even do quarterly planning, and we recommend it for some of our clients who are doing quarterly planning, because then that helps their cash flow management throughout the year, especially if they're a business owner.
So that's how you know you've got an accountant that's watching out for you, without you, having to ask, what am I supposed to be doing right now?
Exactly.
They're more proactive.
Exactly. Gretchen, what additional would you add?
Yeah, just being comfortable with the person. You know, are they honest about their timeline? Do you have, you know, go with your gut. If you trust the person and they're honest, and if you immediately approach somebody and say, hey, can I do my taxes? And they just immediately say yes without even taking into consideration what it is you need done, that might be a red flag that they're just taking in whatever they can get. You want to go to somebody that will take the time to make sure they are qualified to work on your particular return, because there is a wide range of accounting matters for individuals and businesses. So yeah, having someone that's honest and say, oh, well, what services do you need? Let me see if my firm is a good fit for you, should be one of the, you know, things that should make you feel comfortable. You don't want to go to someone that's like, yes, we'll do it. Because you want to make sure that they're qualified. So we, you know, as accountants also are interviewing our clients to make sure we can best service the client. Are we qualified to do this work, or are we just going to not provide the best service because we're not sure? You know, we're going to spend a lot of time trying to become an expert on one client, and you know, that's not beneficial to us, and it's not beneficial to the client either. So make sure you're interviewing somebody and you feel comfortable and they're honest. Yeah, that's about it.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just said I agree.
Well, and to that point, so I'm going to ask, it's not necessarily the flip side of that, but even as somebody who, so I'm thinking of even just in the last year alone, as a business owner, was finding like that the CPA that we were working with was no longer, it just wasn't working anymore. And so we needed to find someone. We were too early in the business to have things going wrong. And it was a strange incident. So I actually won't go through all of that. It was part of business accounts being sold, personal accounts not, as our former CPA retired. But one of the things that was interesting for my business partner and I to find was just that it doesn't feel like we've got a very good fit anymore with our CPA. And so I'd love to hear even from you, you know, and in fact, we changed our bookkeeper as well. But just as you're working with clients, or as you're even just working with a CPA or a bookkeeper yourself, when you're finding that something just isn't working, what are some of those warning flags, or what are some of those things that you should be paying attention to that are saying, you know what, you might want to take a look at what other resources could be out there to support you on an individual level or on a business level? Just so that you can avoid having to go years and years and years and then find out that maybe there were mistakes made that kind of got compounded against over time. So Gretchen, I'm going to start with you, and then I'll go Kathy, Jill. So long question. So
yeah, so for me as a CPA, having that conversation with a client, is that what you were?
Well, even if as an individual, so as an individual, what should you be paying attention to know maybe it's time for me to start looking at what other resources are out there?
Yeah, as an individual, I guess I would feel as though, you know, is my CPA looking out for the best interest of me? Are they engaged in my, you know, do they take the time to fully understand all I have to bring to the table? Are they looking at big picture? Are they helping me? And if they're not really engaged, they're just kind of like, drop your stuff off and we'll get it done. That would probably be a big red flag for me, because, you know, there's lots of things that go into doing a tax return. So if someone's not taking the time to ask you questions, that should be a red flag, because as an individual, you might not realize some things that might benefit you on a tax return. And so if someone's taking the time to, hey, you haven't filled out this checklist, let me make sure that any of these situations don't happen. If they're taking the time, you should feel good that they're putting in the effort to make sure they're doing a quality job.
Right. Absolutely. Kathy, what else would you add there?
So when people come to me, Erin, let's say you called me tomorrow and you said, I'm really tired. This bookkeeper isn't working out. I'd ask a lot of questions on why it's not working out. And I'm going to do everything I can to have you stay with this current bookkeeper. because I don't believe it's in your best interest, Aaron, to be switching bookkeepers on a regular basis.
Right.
Because someone else has to get up and running. So I'm going to ask why, and it often comes down to communication. And I believe the communication falls on both parties, but it's important for you, Aaron, to be talking about what your concerns and your challenges are in working with them. I need my reports by the 14th, and I think clear communication in that, and to put it in writing, and to do pleasant nudges on occasion, I think are okay. Now I have that conversation, and usually they still change bookkeepers. So that's not to say that you would still, and you never want to talk to your bookkeeper again. I mean, it gets really bad sometimes. I don't want you ever, so, but I would encourage you to try to make it work.
Absolutely. Well, and that makes sense. I mean, it was quite an ordeal, even thinking about going over it this year, and then just kind of the discovery phase of somebody getting used to how you want your books updated and how you want the reports done. That there was a lot involved in it, that to do that multiple times seems like kind of a headache as a business owner.
Yeah.
And I trust your gut. I would trust your gut after that conversation, and then I would try to cobble together some sort of a bookkeeping service that would meet your needs.
Awesome. Jill, we lost Yolanda. Okay. Jill, what would you add?
Kind of piggybacking on what everyone said is communication is probably the biggest thing. And it is a two-way street, because there are several times where I've tried to engage in emails, calls to clients to get answers, to move things along, and non-responsive. And I think as an individual, if I was looking for a CPA, if I was sending out, phone calls, emails, and I was getting nothing in return, it would be concerning. And then that would be the time to get on the phone and be like, okay, what's not working and why is this not working? Because, there could be, we're human, so there could be a reason for the lack of phone calls, emergencies happen, stuff like that. But if it's constant dead air, something needs to get fixed. But with your situation with the bookkeeper, you need to have trust in that bookkeeper, just like you need to have trust in that accountant, because too often you'll see bookkeepers do some not super great things, and it can get the bookkeeper and the taxpayer in trouble. And sometimes the taxpayer is not aware. So like, with Kathy, you need to have a good, honest, reliable bookkeeper. But yeah, same with, you need to have a good, honest, reliable accountant that is looking out for you.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm curious. So Jill, I'm going to start with you, and then, no, I'm going to start with Kathy, and then I'm going to go Gretchen and Jill. So I'd love to hear just even what are your top 2 tips? So what actionable tips can somebody put into place today that either can make, if it's not helpful even necessarily for this year, that they can be doing today that'll at least set them up to be better off and more organized for their 2021 tax year?
Okay. Can I finish one thing on the last question?
Absolutely.
If you have a bookkeeper that you feel isn't technically strong, but has the communication strengths, then hire someone to give them a little bit of training. So invest in that, and or ask your accountant to give, if they're, oddly enough, our skills usually are very different. What I do tends to be very different than what Jill and Gretchen does. Yeah. Okay, so then for this year, 2020, what would you do differently? I would start a list of questions that I have for my accountant. I'd keep it ongoing, so I wouldn't hit them with every question one at a time. But 2020, like right now, I'd start a little list, like, should my home office be, is that going to be a tax deduction? Or another question I might ask is, am I just going to get the standard deduction, and should I not worry about all these things? What's the, how much in expenses do I need to have before I waste my time coming up? So I'd think of some questions that are bothering you. I'm trying to think of other ones that I might have asked recently, but I would think of questions, whatever they are. They're not foolish questions. And I would call your accountant, and I'd ask the questions now or in the next weeks. I would also, if for some reason you have, so there's a big difference. are you going to itemize or not?
Right.
Is it worth it? If you are going to itemize, then you got to get all your car records, your miles in order. If you've got volunteer and business miles. And that's always kind of a pain. You can do that now.
Well, and I feel like 2020 was one of those years where there was probably a lot less of the business miles. Because I couldn't really expense the ones walking downstairs to my office. So a little bit different this last year. But I love your idea around capturing them in a list, because a lot of times when you get into that meeting with your CPA or even with your bookkeeper, it's like, oh, I knew I had some stuff, but now I just can't remember any of the questions at all. So I love the idea of having that running list. Awesome. Gretchen, what else? What are your top 2 tips that you would say you'd love to see the action on?
Get organized. So start right now. If you're not, and you're open your mail and you're like, oh, here's this, and I'm going to throw it here and there. Start now. If you're an individual and, we're in 2021, let's start our new tax folder for 2021. So if you make a donation and you're going to put that, in that tax folder. If you get anything from the IRS, put it in the tax folder, let your accountant know. I know this year with so many changes, people got the stimulus payment. Some people might not have kept the records if they didn't get the full amount. So they're like, I'm not sure, we're going to do their tax return. I'm not sure how much I got, but I did get something. Well, the IRS did send you something last year in May. Did you get it? I'm not sure where I know where it's at. So start now, don't leave all your bad habits in the past and start now by getting organized. And this is my folder for this year, and everything that I do that could impact my taxes, HSA information, any tax deductions, put it in your tax folder and get organized. It'll make your life easier, and it'll make your accountant's life a lot easier. So yeah, get organized.
Right. Well, and if you can't find those payments too, you can go to the IRS's website to find out at least the amount if you did get stimulus last year.
Yes, you can do that. Yes.
But even it's as simple as just one folder, have one place, and just put everything there. We can sort it out. We can get it organized later, but just at least start with putting it all in one spot.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Jill, what are your top 2 tips?
Well, it's going to go off of kind of both Kathy and Gretchen. What I would always suggest is, because I'm a spreadsheet girl, so as you're getting in things for 2020 tax year, maybe create a file on your computer in a spreadsheet, 2021 things that I need to look out for. So then that way you can accumulate a running list if you're kind of the same year over year over year. So you make sure that you're not missing something when you're providing it for your accountant the next year. Or if you know ahead of time you're going to get a new form, like say you changed brokerage accounts or bank accounts, you switched jobs, you had unemployment, things that you might not have year after year. If you know you're going to have it in the current year, add it to your spreadsheet. So when next year when tax season comes and you're trying to get everything together, you can look at your list and be like, okay, so I'm waiting for a 1099 from this bank. I'm waiting for a W-2 from this. So you know what you have, what you're missing, and you're not giving your accountant an incomplete folder. And then in regard to Kathy's running list of questions, I 100% agree that accumulate your questions as you go, but sometimes questions are a little bit pressing. So as accountants, we love when clients call or email us, because there might be something that if you handle it with your accountant right away, that this is a credit or something that you can take advantage as an individual or a business owner, that you can be accumulating all that information ongoing, or you can realize, hey, they can tell you that's not going to apply to you, so don't worry about it. So you're both saving your time, or you're knowing that you should spend the time and do it. But there are questions that obviously if you just accumulate the list when you're preparing the return, the accountant can do it. But there's some questions that are a little bit more pressing that I love when clients call and email me, because then I feel helpful to them, and I can make sure that they're doing the best for themselves. And then in turn, once we file the returns and we're doing their financials and everything, we're making sure that it's the best product possible.
Right. Well, and you're answering those questions while they are small and addressable, and they're not turning in and
Before it
mushrooming into
snowballs.
something big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Totally. So a couple of additional questions that I would have, and then I've got kind of my one of my favorite wrap up questions for sure. Are there anything in particular that stand out to you that people may or may not be aware of that can help reduce their tax burden that they should be looking into either with their accountant or with their bookkeeper? So Kathy, I'm going to start with you again, and I'm going to go Kathy, Jill, Gretchen.
I don't do tax. I really don't know.
Okay.
I wish you really got to talk to.
Sorry, I didn't. Yes.
That's okay.
I'm gonna start. I'll go Jill and Gretchen.
Anytime a client would ask me that, I'd say you got to call your accountant about that. When I get questions like, should I own the car through the business or personally, or what should I make in the way of I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So Jill and Gretchen.
I would say if you're an individual and you're on the verge of itemizing, say you previously itemized before all the tax changes, but because of the fact that they limited you to only being able to deduct $10,000, you have mortgage interest and you have a little bit of charity. If you're on that verge of being over the standard deduction, why don't you hold off on those charitable deductions and lump them all in 1 year? Because then you're still getting the standard deduction, and say you have a church and you have a school, you like all these charities. But say at the end of the year, you look and you're like, okay, I'm not going to meet it where I'm going to itemize in 2021. But if I lump those 12, 31, 21 deductions that I was going to do, I wait till January 1st. And then I take that next year where I was going to do it at the end. Now you have 2 years of charity, and it's just going to be a day different for the charity. So they're still getting their money. But as the taxpayer, you're able to essentially bundle your itemized deductions for the charity. So then you're able to get yourself over the threshold of standard deduction, and you're able to get more itemized, and you'll be able to save on your taxes.
Awesome.
So it's more beneficial, and it makes the charities happy because they're still getting the money.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you. That was really helpful.
Okay.
Gretchen, what else would you add?
As a young person just starting out working, sometimes people might not think they need to put money into a 401k yet, or they don't put very much. I would urge people at a young age to maximize their 401k contribution, because that can reduce your taxes. And so I would encourage young people, or any people of any age really, to contribute to a 401k plan. You can also contribute to an HSA, health savings plan, that can reduce your tax. I know my son had braces this year, and I was super excited to put the full amount into the plan and then take the money out and pay for it, and it reduced our taxes as well. So those are just some small things that I think people should take advantage of. Just simple things that you could take advantage of now.
Well, that's good to know. I've got braces coming this year for at least
Yep.
one of mine. So,
So my daughter, I don't know if this is true or not, but my daughter, when I told her I was going to be on this panel, she said, well, make sure you tell people that when your income gets over a certain amount, you can't contribute to a Roth IRA anymore.
Yes, that's what I was just going to say.
Okay, go with it, Jill. I don't know. I didn't even know about that rule, but
when you're just starting off in the working world, while your income is still at a lower threshold and you're still in a low tax bracket, I totally recommend doing a Roth IRA, or if you have the option at your employer, doing a Roth 401k, because then once you're older and you're going to start taking out those retirement dollars, that most likely you'll be at a higher tax bracket, you'll be able to take those out tax-free. Right. So that's also great tax savings.
And it's my understanding too, though, that yes, that is the case with the income piece for a Roth IRA. But if you have the option for a Roth 401k, that does not necessarily have those same type of income restrictions.
Correct. Yep, but it still has the benefit at the end.
Right.
But there's also, if you do have other IRAs and you are at a higher income level, you can still do Roth IRA conversions, and if it's beneficial. But that's where an accountant you get an accountant, you do tax planning, and you can find out the best situation to do that for you.
Yes. And your financial planners too, because I did not know that
Yep.
until yesterday when I was literally asking my financial advisors that question. So
Yep.
good to know.
Yep.
So question that I'd like to ask I like to, but often I don't get an opportunity to because we're just flying through a lot of other things. What do you know now? And you can take this any way you want. Know now in your field, just as a leader, as an alum, that you wish you knew when you graduated from SUA? So what do you know now that you wish you knew back when we were down on Indian Road? So
Well,
this is gonna be whoever wants to go first. So Jill, you're ready.
I have a current junior at SUA, so I tell her all the time things that I wish I knew when I was in school, that, you know, because it's hilarious because she has some of the teachers that I had when I was at SUA. Basically, don't get hung up on the small stuff is the biggest thing that I always tell her. Things that seem so big in high school in the grand scheme of things are not. It's so small. Enjoy it. And I wish I probably enjoyed it more than, you know, I did at the time, but at the time I was more, oh my God, this is so stressful. Yeah. I keep telling her, I was like, honey, like, it seems so big right now, but it's really not. It's going to be okay. That's probably what I would just tell my younger self or tell my daughter.
Absolutely. Kathy or Gretchen, what would you add? What do you know now that you wish you knew? And Yolanda, I'm also going to ask you too.
I've kind of felt when I was in high school, I always felt like this constant pressure or anxiety of, I need to know what I'm doing next. I need to know where I'm going to college. I need to make this decision and it has to be the best decision. And I need to know what my career is going to be, and it has to be the right. And I would think hard and long and make sure that whatever I chose was the right decision. And I still find myself struggling with that today, is just getting hung up on, is this the right decision? And sometimes you make a decision and it might not be what it might not be the best decision, but you learn from it, and it's part of life. And so I wish I wouldn't have been so hung up on trying to make sure every decision I made in life was the best decision ever. And maybe, 2 years down the road, the decision you thought was the best decision wasn't the best. So why did I spend 5 nights awake stressing about it? And go with your gut, and you're going to make mistakes and you just got to get through it.
Awesome. Kathy, what about you?
Well, it's been a long time since I've been in high school. So I honestly, and maybe so I'm having a hard time connecting with feelings at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say that life is just like a box of chocolates. It's rich, it's yummy, it's sweet. I mean, and hopefully it's that way for all of our alumni. I think there certainly are bumpy roads along the way, but hopefully St. Ursula, I don't know, I'm internally grateful for my connections at St. Ursula. I still have so many friends from there, even though I don't live in Toledo. So I'm very grateful for my 4 years at St. Ursula, and all my teachers and all the leaders there. And I'm sure this is great that they included me on this today.
Awesome. So thank you. Yolanda, how about you?
Well, I'm in between Kathy and everyone else. So I'll be celebrating my 35th reunion this year. Yay. And I think probably one thing that I didn't realize while I was there is that I would really have lifelong friends. Mm-hmm. And my children are 25 and 23. And I probably had, I think, like 3 or 4 girls in my bridal party. My best friend that I met at St. Ursula, her and her husband are my children's godparents. And it's just such a connection. What's really funny is when my daughter was younger, she graduated from Ursula in 2014. But when she was in elementary school and we would be around town and I'd say, oh, there's so and so and so. She went to St. Ursula. And I know she's like, all of these people could have not all went to St. Ursula. I'm like, just introducing her to people and, just letting her see that just because you're not, attached at the hip, the experience that you have as being a graduate and going through those same halls with the yellow lockers and, a lot of the same rooms are the same classrooms that were there, eons ago. And some of the same teachers are there. I knew them with their maiden name versus their married name, but that's probably the one thing that I didn't realize would happen while I was there. So really just choosing your friends because oftentimes they are with you for a lifetime. And I think that's a real blessing.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Yolanda, if you want to wrap us up and then I will stop recording and then we can go ahead and take any additional questions too.
Sure. And, I want to thank you all so much. I will be at St. Ursula for a year on March 4th. So I'm so glad to be back, but obviously you all can understand the challenges these last 11, 12 months. But what is always so refreshing and so heartwarming to me is the support that the alum give the school. And with this Draw Your Bow, again, just looking back, one thing that I was thinking of when my daughter was there was, okay, well, she's looking at going to Ohio State. We don't know anybody in Columbus. She's looking into going into athletic training. I don't know anyone that has a degree in athletic training. So when I got the position, I just wanted to make sure that I worked toward answering those questions and making those connections. And I think today, especially with the topics of taxes, having been a previous small business owner, I could have used this about 10 years ago. And life would have been a little easier, but I do appreciate you all for joining us today. I know anyone that watches this recording will benefit in so many ways. And I just thank you, each and every one of you. And Hannah, I see you there. We don't see your face, but I appreciate you being on live.
Absolutely.
Thank you.